Have you ever said something in anger and regretted it the very next second? Or reacted emotionally to a situation only to wish you had stayed calm? If yes, then today's video is for you. We're diving into the book, The Power of Not Reacting: How to Control Your Emotions by Sri Svati, a guide that shows us how to master our emotions before they master us. In this video, I'll break down the core lessons of the book in a simple and practical way. By the end, you'll know exactly how to stop reacting on impulse and instead respond with clarity and strength. Let's get started. Part 1. The Hidden Enemy: Emotional Reactivity. Let me tell you something that might sting. Your emotions are not your superpower. In fact, most of the time, they're your biggest liability. Yes, emotions are natural. Yes, they're human. But left unchecked, they are like wild horses dragging you in every direction, wrecking your goals, your relationships, and your peace of mind. You think you're choosing, but really, you're just reacting. And every reaction has a price. Here's the truth nobody likes to admit: emotions are not designed to make you successful in today's world. They evolved to keep ancient humans alive in the jungle. Fear kept us away from snakes. Anger gave us the energy to fight. Anxiety helped us scan the environment for danger. Useful back then. But today, those same emotions are firing off in board meetings, in text arguments, in job interviews, in traffic jams. You're not being chased by a tiger, you're replying to an email. But your brain doesn't know the difference. And that's why it keeps sabotaging you. Let me paint the picture. Imagine you're in a meeting. A colleague questions your idea. Suddenly, your chest tightens. Your mind screams, "They're attacking me." Before you even process what's happening, you snap back defensively. The room goes cold. You look insecure instead of confident. And when you leave the room, regret hits like a brick. One small emotional reaction, 60 seconds of losing control, just cost you credibility that took years to build. Or let's take it to your personal life. You're having a calm conversation with your partner. They make a comment, maybe even a joke, that hits a sensitive spot. Boom. You feel disrespected. Instead of breathing, instead of clarifying, you lash out. Old wounds get dragged into the fight. 10 minutes later, you've turned something minor into a war. And the worst part? You both know it didn't have to happen. But you couldn't stop yourself. That's the prison of reactivity. Here's the brutal reality. Every time you let emotions run the show, you weaken yourself. You reinforce the habit of losing control. Neuroscience proves this. Every outburst releases a chemical cocktail of adrenaline and cortisol. These hormones hijack your brain, cloud your judgment, and push you to make poor decisions. And they don't just disappear when the argument ends. They linger in your system for hours, sometimes days, poisoning every thought, every interaction, every choice you make. One bad reaction in the morning can ruin an entire day, even an entire week. And here's what most people never realize: emotions are contagious. You don't just ruin your own day, you infect others. That sharp email reply triggers someone else's stress. Your angry tone sparks someone else's defensiveness. Suddenly, a single uncontrolled moment creates a chain reaction of conflict and negativity that spreads far beyond you. You're not just sabotaging yourself, you're pulling others down with you. This is the hidden cost of emotional reactivity. It's invisible, but it's enormous. Lost opportunities, broken trust, damaged health, sleepless nights. And the worst part? Most people think it's normal. They say, "That's just how I am." They confuse emotional outbursts with authenticity. They think losing control makes them passionate or real. But the truth is, it makes them weak. It makes them predictable. And it keeps them stuck in the same cycles of regret over and over again. But here's the flip side, the hopeful part. The very fact that reactivity is a habit means it can be broken. The same brain that trains itself to lose control can be retrained to stay calm, focused, and strategic under pressure. That's what separates average people from high performers. Ordinary people react. Leaders respond. Ordinary people let their impulses dictate their future. High performers master the gap between stimulus and response, the gap where choice lives, where power lives. So if you're tired of being hijacked by your own emotions, If you're ready to stop bleeding opportunities and relationships because of a few seconds of weakness, then lean in. Because in this book, and in this journey, you're going to learn how to step into that gap. How to build the unshakable calm that makes you unstoppable. And it all starts by facing the truth. Your emotions are not in charge, you are. Part 2. Awareness, the first step. Here's the hard truth. You cannot control what you don't notice. And that's why awareness is the very first step in mastering your emotions. Most people walk through life completely blind to their emotional patterns. They don't realize when anger is building. They don't notice when anxiety is creeping in. They don't see jealousy or pride rising until it explodes out of them and damages everything around them. By the time they realize what happened, it's already too late. The words are spoken. The damage is done. The regret is permanent. Think about it like driving a car. Imagine you're on the highway, and you suddenly feel the vehicle swerving out of control. If you only notice when you've already crashed, you're finished. But if you notice the wheel pulling just a little to the side, you can correct it immediately and keep moving safely. Your emotions work the same way. If you only notice them when you're screaming, crying, or shutting down, it's too late. Awareness means noticing the warning lights before the crash. The problem is, most of us are terrible at this. We don't check in with ourselves. We're so focused on the outside world, emails, messages, arguments, deadlines, that we forget to pay attention to the inner world where everything actually starts. By the time we wake up, we've already reacted. That's why Swati says awareness is not optional. It is the foundation. Without awareness, there is no control. Without awareness, you're just a puppet pulled by invisible strings. So how do you build awareness? It starts with asking the right questions. In moments of stress, ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling right now? Where is this emotion coming from? What triggered it? Don't judge it. Don't fight it. Just notice it. The simple act of naming your emotion creates a tiny distance between you and the feeling. That distance is everything. Instead of, I am angry, you say, I feel anger rising. See the difference? One makes the emotion your identity. The other makes it something temporary, something separate, something you can manage. Science backs this up. Neuroscientists have discovered that when you label an emotion, you reduce its intensity. The brain shifts activity from the amygdala, the emotional center, to the prefrontal cortex, the rational center. In other words, just by saying, this is anger, or this is anxiety, you're already weakening its grip on you. That is the power of awareness. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're about to give a presentation. Your palms are sweating. Your heart is racing. Normally, you'd panic, thinking, I can't do this. I'm going to mess up. That panic spirals into a disaster. But with awareness, you pause and think, this is anxiety. My body is preparing me for performance. It's just adrenaline. It's not danger, it's energy. Suddenly, the same emotion that could have crippled you now fuels you. The difference wasn't the situation. The difference was awareness. Here's another scenario. You get into an argument with your partner. Instead of instantly snapping back, awareness allows you to notice, my chest feels tight. My voice is rising. My mind is racing to attack. That pause, just noticing, gives you the chance to breathe and ask, do I want to make this worse, or do I want to make this better? That single moment of awareness can save a relationship that years of love built. The best part? Awareness is a skill, and like any skill, it gets sharper with practice. You can train yourself to notice triggers earlier and earlier. At first, you'll only notice after the explosion. Then you'll start noticing in the middle of it. Then you'll catch it just as it's starting. And eventually, you'll feel the spark before the fire even starts. That's mastery. That's when you stop being controlled by your emotions and start controlling them. So here's the challenge for you. For the next 7 days, don't try to control your emotions. Don't try to suppress them. Just notice them. Write them down. Every time you feel triggered, ask, what exactly am I feeling? Where is it showing up in my body? What thought just triggered it? This practice alone will change your life. Because awareness is the light switch. Once you turn it on, the darkness of reactivity begins to disappear. Remember this, emotions thrive in the shadows. They control you when you don't see them. But the moment you shine the light of awareness on them, they lose their power. That's why awareness is not just the first step, it is the step everything else depends on. Without it, you're blind. With it, you begin to see clearly for the first time. Part 3. The pause, your superpower. Now that you understand the problem and you've started building awareness, it's time to unlock one of the most powerful tools in human existence, the pause. Sounds simple, right? But don't underestimate it. The pause is the razor-thin line that separates people who are slaves to their emotions from people who dominate their emotions. The pause is where battles are won, where relationships are saved, where careers are made or destroyed. It is small, but it is mighty. Here's the reality. Emotions hit fast. Anger, anxiety, jealousy, they arrive like lightning. And most people react just as fast. Someone pushes their button, and boom, they explode. But what if, in that split second, you inserted a pause? What if instead of snapping, you stopped? Instead of speaking, you breathed? Instead of acting, you observed? That single pause changes everything. It gives your rational brain a chance to catch up. It gives you space to choose. And choice is power. Think of it like this. Emotions are like waves. When the wave first rises, it feels unstoppable. But if you can just pause, just stay still, the wave peaks and then it passes. Most people drown because they jump right into the wave. The pause is your surfboard. It keeps you steady until the storm calms down. Let me give you a scenario. You receive an email that feels insulting. Your first instinct is to fire back a sharp reply to defend yourself. But then you remember, pause. You stand up. You take 3 deep breaths. Maybe you even walk away for 5 minutes. When you return, you realize that half the offense was in your own interpretation. If you had reacted instantly, you'd have burned a bridge. Because you paused, you saved it. Another example. You're in traffic. Someone cuts you off. Your hands tighten on the wheel. Your mouth fills with words you probably shouldn't say. In the past, you'd shout, honk, maybe even chase them down. But this time, you pause. You remind yourself, my peace is more valuable than this stranger's mistake. And in that pause, you protect your mood, your energy, and maybe even your safety. The situation didn't change. You changed. Now, here's what makes the pause so powerful. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about buying time. Time for awareness to work. Time for logic to speak. Time for you to ask, what outcome do I want here? Without the pause, your primitive brain controls you. With the pause, your higher brain, the part that plans, strategizes, and sees the bigger picture, takes over. That is the difference between impulsive reactions and intelligent responses. Neuroscience proves this. When you pause, even for a few seconds, your brain shifts out of fight or flight mode. Your stress chemicals begin to settle. Your prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, comes online. You literally give yourself access to wisdom that would have been shut down if you reacted instantly. This is why people who master the pause are calmer, smarter, and more respected. They don't waste energy on every provocation. They save their power for the battles that truly matter. But let's be real. The pause is not easy. In the heat of the moment, every cell in your body screams for you to react. That's why you have to train it like a muscle. Start small. When your phone pings, instead of grabbing it instantly, pause for 5 seconds. When someone interrupts you, pause before replying. When you feel anger rising, pause and breathe before speaking. Each time you do this, you strengthen your ability to insert space between stimulus and response. Over time, the pause becomes automatic. It becomes who you are. Here's a challenge. For the next week, practice the 3-breath rule. Anytime you feel triggered, by a person, by a message, by a thought, don't react. Instead, take 3 slow, deep breaths before doing anything. You'll be shocked at how many disasters you avoid, how many regrets you prevent, and how much calmer your life becomes. 3 breaths, that's it. That's your shield, your superpower. Remember this, reacting is easy, Pausing is hard. But pausing is what separates amateurs from masters. Anyone can explode. Anyone can panic. But the person who can pause in the storm, that's the person who wins. That's the person people trust. That's the person who walks through chaos untouched. And that can be you, if you choose the pause. Part 4. Mindfulness and Breathing. Training your inner calm. Now you might be thinking, pausing sounds great in theory, but in the heat of the moment, it feels impossible. When your heart is racing, when your blood is boiling, how can you just stop yourself? This is where mindfulness and breathing come in. Think of them as the training ground for your pause. If the pause is your shield, mindfulness and breathing are the gym where you build the strength to hold that shield steady. Let's start with breathing. Sounds too simple, right? But here's the science. When you get triggered, your nervous system shifts into fight or flight mode. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your heart races. Your muscles tense. This physical response is what makes you feel out of control. But deep, slow breathing flips the switch. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and restore mode. Within seconds, your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, your brain clears. In other words, your breath is the remote control for your emotions. Think of a soldier in combat. Bullets flying, chaos everywhere. The difference between survival and disaster is calmness under fire. Special forces train breathing exercises specifically for this reason. Box breathing, 4-count breathing, these aren't spiritual tricks, they're survival tools. If a soldier can stay calm under gunfire using their breath, you can stay calm in a meeting, in traffic, or during an argument with your partner. The technique is the same. Breathe slow, breathe deep, and let your body know you are safe. Here's an exercise you can try right now. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. Repeat. That's it. Just a few cycles of this can dissolve stress and give you the clarity to respond wisely. This is the kind of tool you want in your back pocket for life's toughest moments. Now let's talk about mindfulness. If breathing is the body's reset button, mindfulness is the mind's reset button. Mindfulness simply means being fully present, aware of your thoughts, emotions, and surroundings without judgment. Sounds simple, but it's revolutionary.
Why?
Because most of the time, you're not present. You're lost in the past, rehashing old arguments, or stuck in the future, worrying about problems that haven't happened. And when you're lost in thought, you're vulnerable. Anyone can push your buttons. Any random comment or event can hijack you. But when you are mindful, when you're here, now, you notice the trigger before it takes control. You catch the spark before it becomes a fire. Mindfulness doesn't mean sitting cross-legged for an hour chanting. It means paying attention to the present moment. You can practice it anywhere. While eating, notice the taste, the texture, the smell. While walking, notice your footsteps, the air, the sounds. While working, notice your breath, your posture, your focus. Each moment of mindfulness is like a rep in the mental gym. Over time, your awareness gets sharper, your reactivity weaker. Here's a real-life story. A CEO once said that mindfulness meditation saved his career. He used to snap at employees when things went wrong. His reactivity created fear and resentment in the office. Productivity dropped. Then he started practicing 10 minutes of mindfulness every morning. Slowly, he became more aware of his emotions as they rose. Instead of barking orders in anger, he paused, breathed, and responded with clarity. His employees noticed the change. The culture shifted. The company thrived. All because he learned to watch his emotions instead of being ruled by them. And here's the best part. Mindfulness and breathing don't just help in the moment, they rewire your brain. Neuroscientists have found that regular mindfulness practice strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for self-control and decision-making. It also shrinks the amygdala, the part responsible for fear and aggression. In simple terms, the more you practice, the calmer and stronger you become at a biological level. This isn't just psychology, it's physiology. You are literally reshaping your brain for resilience. So here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, set aside 5 minutes a day for mindfulness. Just 5. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. When your mind wanders, and it will, bring it back gently. That's it. 5 minutes. Over time, you'll notice a new calmness in your life. Things that used to trigger you will barely move you. You'll start to feel a gap, a space, between stimulus and response. That gap is your freedom. That gap is your power. Remember, mindfulness and breathing are not luxuries. They are necessities if you want to win the battle against reactivity. They are the daily training that prepares you for life's biggest tests. Without them, the pause feels impossible. With them, the pause becomes natural. So breathe deep. Stay present. Train your mind like a warrior trains his body. Because when you master your breath and your awareness, you master yourself. Part 5. Reframing and Growth Mindset. Turning Triggers into Teachers. Up to this point, you've learned how to pause, breathe, and stay present. That alone puts you ahead of most people. But here's the next level, learning to actually change the way you see problems. Because the truth is, no matter how calm you become, life will always throw challenges at you. The difference between winners and quitters isn't the absence of problems, it's how they interpret them. This is where reframing and the growth mindset come in. Reframing means shifting the story you tell yourself about what's happening. It's like changing the lens on a camera. The situation stays the same, but the way you view it transforms. For example, let's say someone criticizes your work. The default reaction: anger, defensiveness, hurt. But what if you reframed it? What if you saw that criticism not as an attack, but as free feedback? Suddenly, the same event becomes fuel for growth instead of a trigger for reactivity. Same situation, new story, better outcome. This is powerful because your brain doesn't respond to reality. It responds to your interpretation of reality. That's why two people can go through the exact same event and have completely different experiences. One sees failure and quits. The other sees a lesson and gets stronger. The event didn't change. The frame did. Here's a real-life example. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. When asked how he dealt with failure, he famously said, "I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work." That's reframing. Most people would have drowned in frustration. Edison turned failure into feedback. That's why we have light bulbs today. Now let's connect this to the growth mindset. Psychologist Carol Dweck discovered that people generally operate from one of two mindsets: fixed or growth. A fixed mindset believes your abilities are set in stone, you're either smart or dumb, talented or untalented, and nothing can change that. A growth mindset believes abilities can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. Here's why this matters. If you have a fixed mindset, every challenge feels like a threat. Failure feels like proof that you're not good enough. Criticism feels like an attack on your identity. No wonder you react emotionally. But if you have a growth mindset, challenges become opportunities. Failure becomes data. Criticism becomes guidance. You don't react, you adapt. You don't panic, you learn. And that changes everything. Think about it. When you believe life is happening to you, you feel like a victim. You complain, you get defensive, you lash out. But when you believe life is happening for you, for your growth, for your strength, for your evolution, you stay calm. Because you know even the pain has purpose. Even the setbacks are training you for something bigger. Let me give you a scenario. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. The fixed mindset says, "This is unfair. My day is ruined. Why does this always happen to me?" Anger takes over, stress hormones flood your system, and by the time you arrive, you're frazzled. The growth mindset says, "Okay, I can't control traffic, but I can control me. Let me use this time to rehearse my presentation, listen to a podcast, or practice breathing." Same traffic, different frame, different outcome. One ruins your day. The other makes you better. And here's the best part. Reframing isn't lying to yourself. It's not about pretending everything is sunshine and rainbows. It's about choosing the interpretation that empowers you instead of the one that weakens you. Because every situation contains multiple truths. Which one you focus on is your choice. So how do you train this skill? Simple. When something triggers you, ask better questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of, "Why are they against me?" ask, "How can I use this to improve?" Questions change focus. Focus changes emotions. And emotions change behavior. This is how you shift from victim to victor, by reframing the story you tell yourself. The growth mindset is what allows people to stay calm under pressure. Athletes use it when they miss a shot. Entrepreneurs use it when their businesses fail. Leaders use it when plans fall apart. The world doesn't need more people who panic at obstacles. It needs people who can reframe obstacles as opportunities. That's emotional mastery. So here's your challenge. For the next week, every time something annoys you, frustrates you, or disappoints you, pause and reframe it. Ask, "How can I grow from this? What's the hidden gift here?" Do this enough times, and your brain will automatically start seeking opportunity instead of reacting to adversity. That's when you'll know you've crossed a line most people never cross. You've turned life into your teacher. And once you do that, there's no situation that can break you. Remember, reactivity makes you a victim of circumstance. Reframing makes you a creator of circumstance. And when you add the growth mindset on top of that, you become unstoppable. Because no matter what happens, you either win or you learn. And that's the mindset of champions. Part 6. Gratitude and Compassion, the secret weapons of emotional control. By now, you've learned how to pause, breathe, and reframe challenges. That already makes you stronger than most people. But here's the truth. Real mastery of your emotions doesn't stop with self-control. It expands into how you relate to others. And the two most underrated tools for this are gratitude and compassion. They're not soft skills. They're not nice-to-haves. They're weapons, powerful ones, that can disarm triggers and keep you in control when others lose their cool. Let's start with gratitude. Science shows that when you practice gratitude, your brain literally rewires itself. You produce more dopamine and serotonin, the same feel-good chemicals that antidepressants are designed to boost. Gratitude doesn't just make you happier, it makes you calmer, more resilient, less reactive. Why? Because when you're focused on what's good in your life, you're less likely to get hijacked by what's bad. Think of it like this. Two people can face the exact same setback, say, losing a job. One spirals into anger, bitterness, and self-pity. The other feels the sting but then remembers what they still have: health, family, skills, new opportunities. That shift in focus makes all the difference. The first person reacts destructively. The second responds constructively. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, it gives you perspective. And perspective is power. Here's a practical challenge. Start each day by listing 3 things you're grateful for. Don't just write them, feel them. It could be your morning coffee, a supportive friend, or simply the fact that you woke up breathing. When you start your day in gratitude, you build an emotional shield. The little triggers that used to ruin your mood will bounce off. You'll find yourself calmer, more centered, harder to shake. Now let's talk about compassion. Compassion means putting yourself in someone else's shoes, even when they're being difficult, rude, or unfair. Why is this so powerful? Because most of the time, people's bad behavior isn't about you, it's about them. Their stress, their insecurities, their pain. When you realize that, you stop taking things personally. And the moment you stop taking things personally, you stop reacting. Think about the last time someone cut you off in traffic. Your instinct was probably anger. Honk, yell, curse. But what if, instead of assuming they're a jerk, you assumed they might be rushing to the hospital or late to pick up their kid? That one shift, from judgment to compassion, instantly lowers your emotional temperature. The situation doesn't change. You do. And that keeps you in control. Compassion isn't weakness. It's strength. It takes zero discipline to snap back at someone. It takes real power to respond with calmness and understanding. Leaders know this. The best CEOs, coaches, and world leaders stay composed not by crushing others, but by empathizing with them. Compassion earns trust. And trust is influence. Influence is power. Here's a story to drive this home. There was a teacher with a notoriously disruptive student. Every day, the boy would act out, yelling, refusing to listen, pushing others around. Most teachers reacted with punishment. But this teacher chose compassion. She pulled the boy aside and simply asked, "What's going on in your life?" He broke down. Turns out, his home life was chaos, violence, neglect, fear. For the first time, someone saw him not as a problem, but as a person. With compassion, the teacher transformed not only her relationship with him, but his entire behavior. He went from the most difficult student to one of the most engaged. That's the power of compassion. It turns enemies into allies, conflict into connection. So how do you train compassion? Simple. Practice perspective shifting. When someone upsets you, ask yourself, what might this person be going through? What pain might be driving their behavior? This doesn't excuse bad actions, but it helps you rise above knee-jerk reactions. Compassion isn't about letting people walk over you. It's about refusing to let their negativity control you. And here's where gratitude and compassion work together. Gratitude centers you on what you have. Compassion softens how you see others. Together, they make you nearly unshakable. Triggers lose their grip. Insults roll off your back. Stressful situations feel lighter. Because instead of reacting with anger or fear, you're responding with perspective and strength. So here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, combine gratitude and compassion. Every morning, list 3 things you're grateful for. Every time someone annoys you, ask, what might they be going through? Do this, and watch how your emotional world transforms. The storms will still come, but you'll stand like a mountain, unmoved, unshaken, calm at the core. Remember this: anger, jealousy, and resentment are easy. Gratitude and compassion are hard. That's why they're powerful. They're not just feel-good ideas. They're strategies for emotional dominance. And when you master them, you don't just control yourself, you inspire others. That's true emotional leadership. Part 7. Forgiveness and letting go, releasing the weight that drags you down. Studio microphone, we've talked about awareness, the pause, breathing, reframing, gratitude, and compassion. By now, you're building serious emotional strength. But there's still one thing that can sabotage all of it: holding on. Holding on to anger, holding on to betrayal, holding on to pain. If you don't learn to forgive and let go, you'll stay chained to your past. And no matter how much you practice self-control, those chains will keep dragging you back into reactivity. Studio microphone, let's be real. Forgiveness is hard. When someone hurts you, lies to you, disrespects you, abandons you, your instinct is to hold on to that anger. You replay it in your mind. You keep the wound open. You tell yourself you're protecting yourself. But here's the truth: you're not protecting yourself, you're poisoning yourself. Resentment doesn't punish them. It punishes you. It's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Meanwhile, your stress levels rise, your sleep suffers, your relationships crumble. You stay stuck in the past while life moves forward without you. Studio microphone, science backs this up. Studies show that people who hold grudges have higher blood pressure, higher rates of depression, and weaker immune systems. Their brains stay stuck in fight-or-flight mode. But people who practice forgiveness experience lower stress, better health, and more emotional stability. Forgiveness isn't just spiritual, it's biological. Your body is begging you to let go. Studio microphone, now, let's clear up a myth. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It doesn't mean saying what happened was okay. It doesn't mean letting toxic people back into your life. Forgiveness means refusing to let the pain control you anymore. It means cutting the emotional cord so you can move forward free. It's not about them. It's about you. Studio microphone, think about it like carrying a backpack filled with rocks. Every resentment, every grudge, every wound, you throw another rock inside. At first, you can still walk. But over time, the weight gets heavier and heavier. Eventually, you can barely move. Forgiveness is taking the rocks out of the bag, one by one. Not because the rocks disappear, but because you choose not to carry them anymore. Studio microphone, here's a story that proves the power of forgiveness. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, wrongly convicted. He was humiliated, abused, and robbed of decades of his life. Most people would have come out filled with bitterness, hungry for revenge. But Mandela chose forgiveness. He once said, "When I walked out of the gate, I knew that if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison." That's the power of letting go. Forgiveness didn't just set Mandela free, it set an entire nation free. Studio microphone. So how do you actually practice forgiveness? Start small. First, acknowledge the pain. Don't suppress it. Don't pretend it didn't hurt. Then, make a conscious decision. I will not let this define me anymore. I release this anger for my sake, not theirs. You can even write it down. I choose to forgive person's name for action, and I release this pain. You may not feel instant relief. That's okay. Forgiveness is a process. Some wounds take time. But each time you choose to release instead of relive, you cut another chain. You get lighter, freer. Studio microphone, and don't forget, forgiveness also applies to yourself. Many people are prisoners of their own guilt. They replay their mistakes, their failures, their regrets. They punish themselves daily for things that happened years ago. But here's the truth. You can't drive forward if you're staring in the rearview mirror. You made mistakes. Good. That means you're human. Learn from them. Grow from them. But don't chain yourself to them. Self-forgiveness is the foundation of self-control. If you can't let go of your own past, you'll never have the emotional strength to handle the present. Studio microphone. So here's your challenge. Pick one grudge you've been carrying. One hurt you've been replaying in your mind. Today, release it. Write it down, speak it out loud, or simply sit quietly and let it go. You don't need to tell the other person. You don't need their apology. This is for you. Notice how you feel afterward. Lighter, freer, stronger. That's the taste of true emotional control. Studio microphone. Remember, holding on makes you a prisoner. Letting go makes you free. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's power. The power to rise above, the power to move forward, the power to live unshackled. The past cannot be changed, but the future is yours. Don't let yesterday's pain steal tomorrow's peace. Forgive, let go, and take back your power. Part 8. Building Emotional Strength Daily. Training like a mental athlete. Studio microphone. By now, you've learned the tools: awareness, the pause, mindfulness, reframing, gratitude, compassion, forgiveness. Each one is powerful on its own. But here's the truth. Emotional mastery isn't built in a single breakthrough moment. It's built daily. Just like muscles grow through consistent training, your emotional strength grows through consistent practice. If you want to be unshakable under pressure, you have to train for it every day. Studio microphone. Think of it like physical fitness. You don't go to the gym once, lift a few weights, and walk out with a six-pack. No, you train regularly. You eat right. You rest. And slowly, your body transforms. Emotional fitness works the same way. One breathing exercise won't change your life. One moment of forgiveness won't erase years of reactivity. But daily reps, small, consistent practices, will rewire your brain, reshape your habits, and rebuild your entire emotional foundation. Studio microphone. So what does emotional training look like? Let's break it down. First, morning priming. How you start your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Most people wake up and immediately flood their minds with negativity, scrolling through social media, reading stressful emails, rushing around. That's like starting your day with mental junk food. Instead, start with practices that strengthen your calm. 5 minutes of breathing, journaling 3 things you're grateful for, setting a clear intention for the day. This primes your brain for focus and resilience. Studio microphone. Second, daily reflection. At the end of the day, take 5 minutes to review your emotional performance. Ask yourself, where did I stay calm today? Where did I overreact? What triggered me, and how can I handle it better next time? This isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Every reflection is like watching game tape after a match. You study your mistakes, celebrate your wins, and prepare to do better tomorrow. Studio microphone. Third, mental workouts. Just like lifting weights builds muscle, Mental exercises build emotional strength. Meditation, visualization, affirmations, reading books that stretch your perspective, journaling your thoughts. Even 5 to 10 minutes a day builds resilience. The key is consistency. Small daily reps add up to massive long-term results. Studio microphone, and don't underestimate the power of your environment. Who you spend time with matters. If you're surrounded by reactive, negative people, you'll absorb that energy. If you surround yourself with calm, disciplined, growth-minded people, you'll rise to their level. Emotional strength is contagious. So curate your circle carefully. Studio microphone, here's a real-life example. A professional athlete once admitted that his emotional control came not just from training his body, but from training his mind every single day. He meditated before games, visualized success during practice, and reflected after every match. That's why, when the pressure was highest, he didn't crack, he thrived. He didn't leave his emotions to chance. He trained them like a skill. And that's why he rose above everyone else. Studio microphone, the same applies to you. Whether you're a parent, an entrepreneur, a student, or an employee, you are in high-stakes situations every day. The stakes may not be championships, but they're your future, your relationships, your peace of mind. Why wouldn't you train for that? Why wouldn't you give yourself the same advantage that top performers in every field use? Studio microphone, and here's the secret. It doesn't take hours a day. It takes minutes. 5 minutes of mindful breathing. 10 minutes of journaling. A few moments of gratitude. Tiny actions, compounded daily, create unshakable strength. The people who seem naturally calm under pressure aren't special. They're trained. They've built their mental muscles through small, consistent reps. And you can too. Studio microphone. So here's your challenge. Design your emotional workout plan. Every morning, prime yourself with breathing, gratitude, and intention. Every evening, reflect on your emotional wins and losses. Throughout the day, use pauses and reframing as your training reps. Over time, this will become your default mode. Calm will become your baseline. Reactivity will fade into the past. Studio microphone, remember, emotional control isn't something you achieve once and forget. It's something you practice, like brushing your teeth, like exercising, like eating. It's daily hygiene for your mind. The more you practice, the stronger you get. And when life throws its biggest storms at you, and it will, you won't be swept away. You'll stand steady, calm, unshakable. Not because you're lucky. Not because you're special. But because you trained for it. Every single day. Part 9. Conclusion and call to action. Owning your emotions, owning your life. Studio microphone, take a moment and think about everything we've covered. You've seen how your emotions, left unchecked, can sabotage your decisions, wreck your relationships, and keep you stuck in cycles of regret. You've learned that emotional reactivity isn't a harmless habit, it's a prison. But you've also discovered the key to breaking free: awareness, the pause, mindfulness, reframing, gratitude, compassion, forgiveness, and daily practice. These aren't just ideas. They are weapons. They are tools. They are the path to mastering yourself. Studio microphone, here's the truth. Life will never stop testing you. People will still criticize you. Stressful situations will still show up. Pain, loss, and disappointment will still find you. You can't control that. What you can control is your response. That space between stimulus and response, that tiny gap, is where your destiny is decided. In that gap, you either surrender to your impulses, or you choose your power. And the choice you make in that gap will shape your entire life. Studio microphone, most people never learn this. They live their whole lives as emotional slaves, yelling when they should stay silent, quitting when they should persist, reacting when they should respond. They never realize that the strongest person in any room is not the loudest, not the angriest, not the most aggressive. The strongest person is the one who remains calm. The one who thinks clearly. The one who chooses wisely. Studio microphone, and that can be you. Imagine yourself walking into a high-stress meeting and staying calm while everyone else panics. Imagine handling conflict in your relationships with clarity and compassion instead of anger. Imagine facing setbacks, failures, even betrayals, and instead of crumbling, you rise. That's not a fantasy. That's the life that emotional mastery creates. Studio microphone, but here's the catch. This isn't about listening to one audiobook or watching one video and thinking you've changed. This is about practice. Daily practice. Just like building muscle, just like learning a skill, emotional strength is forged through repetition. Every time you pause instead of react, you're training. Every time you reframe a problem instead of complaining, you're training. Every time you choose gratitude over resentment, you're training. Each small victory adds up. And soon, you won't just act differently. You'll be different. Studio microphone, so ask yourself, are you willing to stay a prisoner of your emotions, or are you ready to take control? Are you willing to keep letting anger, fear, and insecurity run your life, or are you ready to become the master of your own mind? The choice is yours, and no one can make it for you. Studio microphone, here's your call to action. Starting today, pick one tool from what you've learned and put it into practice. Just one. Maybe it's pausing before you respond. Maybe it's 5 minutes of mindfulness in the morning. Maybe it's writing down 3 things you're grateful for. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start now. Start small. Start today. Because every day you delay, you're training your brain to stay weak. And every day you practice, you're training your brain to get stronger. Studio microphone, remember this, emotional control is not about becoming cold or detached. It's about becoming powerful. It's about mastering the one thing that controls everything else, your mind. When you control your emotions, you control your words. When you control your words, you control your actions. And when you control your actions, you control your future. That's the real chain reaction. That's the real power. Studio microphone, so take a deep breath right now. Feel the power in that pause. That's the same power you can carry into every situation, every relationship, every challenge. That's the power that separates the top 1% from everyone else. The power to not react. The power to choose. The power to own your life. Studio microphone, you've made it this far, and that already proves something. You're serious about change. Don't let this just be inspiration. Turn it into transformation. Your emotions are not your master. They are your signal, your guide, your training ground. You are stronger than your impulses. You are wiser than your reactions. And from this moment forward, you don't have to be controlled by them ever again. Studio microphone, so step into your power. Master the space between stimulus and response. Own your emotions. And when you own your emotions, you own your mind. And when you own your mind, you own your life.